Well, thank you everyone for participating. And it would have been nice if I could have been down at your library and meet you all in person, but this is what we have to do right now. But just to let you know, I am wearing actual pants. I'm not wearing sweatpants or pajama bottoms or cargo shorts or anything. But full disclosure, I do have my slippers on. So I'm in my living room here on the couch. And we'll get started. I want to talk a little bit about what, until not too long ago, publishing was like. You had publishers, book publishers, which now are called traditional publishers because there are other options. And there was a process where an author could contact a publisher and usually, submit maybe a full manuscript or maybe just some chapters, and the publisher would decide whether they thought they could make money by publishing that book. And it was a little bit cumbersome. And you probably have heard stories about famous authors that had to submit proposals numerous times to different publishers before they finally found someone who would take on their project. For authors that didn't want to go that route, there were what they called Vanity Presses, where you would actually pay to have a company publish your book. And the other option was you could just go to a regular printer and have your book printed up, and you would, pay for it up front and purchase the copies. And, if you bought like 200 copies of the book, you would store them in your basement or something until you could find some way to sell them. In those days, people who self-publish are kind of looked down on a little bit because it's like, well, if you couldn't find an actual publisher, the book, might not really be that good. But things are quite a bit different now. And self-publishing of both books and ebooks that people can read online, obviously, is kind of a bigger thing, and people don't look down their noses as much. And it really opens it up to people that have a story that they want to tell one way or another, but don't want to go the route of a traditional publisher. Now, just to compare, and actually I should share some of these slides here. Bear with me a little bit here. Let's get to this one, I guess. Okay, so publishing today, we have what are now called the traditional publishers. There are book printers because, you can still go to a printer and have them print up your book and pay for it all. But the big difference is print on demand, which is something where you prepare a book and electronically and usually submit it to a publishing platform. And when people order the book, it'll only be printed then. So they're not really printed up ahead of time. So that saves on inventory because, book publishers, the traditional publishers, will have, maybe they'll print 1,000 copies of a book at a time, and then they have to store them until they're sold. And if it doesn't sell that well, they're kind of stuck with them. So the print on demand really changes the picture for people that want to self-publish. And then, of course, ebooks is the other thing where people just read books electronically and there's no printing really. So that was the slide there about that. And let me go to the next slide. Okay, so it's comparing traditional publishing versus self-publishing. If you want to get a book published by a traditional publisher, you're going to have to put together a proposal with a lot of details about what your intended book is going to be. You may have to include, competing titles with the book, a lot of background on you, maybe some content as far as the marketing possibilities of the book and who the audience for the book would be. And I've done several of those, and it's not particularly fun to put that together. If the publisher accepts your proposal, they'll give you a contract, and you may get an advance of maybe a few dollars, unless you're a well-known celebrity who can pull down one of these big advances that we hear about in the news. You're then committed to eventually submit your manuscript. The publisher will have people either there or contract out to have somebody do some copy editing of the book, look for any potential errors and things that you may have made, and you'll have to respond to questions about it. If you want to have illustrations in the book, one thing I didn't realize before was that's the author's responsibility to find illustrations and make sure that they can legally be used without violating anybody's copyright, or else get permission to reproduce the illustrations. That's up to the author to do. There are going to be deadlines that you're going to have to meet. The publisher is going to want you help to proof the book afterwards, and usually on the deadline for that, because they want to get the book published by a certain time. They may want you to assist with marketing in some ways. Now, if you publish yourself, you have some options. You have more flexibility because you can work at your own pace. You don't really have a deadline. If something comes up and you decide to postpone getting your book done by a month or two to do something else, you're free to do that. You have total control over the content. Whatever you want to put in there is what should be in there. You can also price it according to what you want. So if you want to make it, more low-cost book and hopefully get more sales, you can do that, and it would limit, some of the profit you might make from the book, but you could reach a broader audience. You still need to find the illustrations to make sure that you can use them legally. You probably will want to have somebody do some copy editing because when you write something, it's hard to edit your own work. Some people can do that, other people find it hard to do. So you may want to have a friend, or you could always hire somebody to help copy edit the book. And then the big thing that's different is the publisher is going to do something to market your book, even if it is only something such as listing your book in their catalog of titles that they published, which helps to publicize it. But it's going to be up to you to market and promote the book yourself. So you're going to need to have some marketing plan and some ways to go about it. Royalties, which is what an author makes from selling the books, the publishers typically only pay once or twice a year. And that's, if they gave you an advance, you don't get anything until they've covered the advance that they already paid you. But with self-published platforms, usually you get paid on a monthly basis. So you get paid on an ongoing basis, which is nice. You don't have to wait like till the end of the year or something to get whatever payment you might get. Also, you typically would get a higher royalty per book self-publishing than what a traditional publisher would give you. And let me, if I can stop sharing this. Some tips on self-publishing. If you're going to publish a printed book, the only thing that's really complicated, other than using a word processor to do whatever documents you might do otherwise, is that the things at the front of your book, like the title page and the back of the title page, where you have like the copyright information and table of contents if there is one, and maybe something like a preface or a dedication. You don't number those as part of the overall book numbering or pagination. So you need to have a word processing program that can do sections of your document. And you have like one section be the front matter, like the table of contents and so forth. And then the contents of your book would be the second section. That way you can have either no numbering on the first section, or you can have, sometimes they number the beginning pages with like Roman numerals to separate it from the actual pagination in the content of the book. So that's a little bit tricky to figure out, and it's not something you normally do with a lot of word processing documents you may have worked on. But once you figure out that little trick, it's really not too bad. Spacing, you'll notice if you look at most books, the chapters will start on the right-hand page, but you don't have to do it that way. You could start it on the left-hand page if you want, but you could end up with like a blank page if one chapter ends and then there's a blank left-hand page and you want to start the next chapter on a right-hand page. You can do that. I did it with the first book I self-published because I wanted to get a quick, and I didn't figure, I was more interested in people having the content and not worrying about that type of formatting. But there's things you could do that you could avoid that. You could play with it some. But it's up to you. If you're not worried about it, if you're mainly interested in getting the book published and getting content out there, you don't even have to worry about that. As I mentioned, copy editing, you may want to get somebody else involved because it's hard to edit your own work. And also the same thing with proofreading. Maybe have somebody go over it when you're pretty much finalized. And if you want to have an index, you're going to have to create an index, but maybe an index isn't necessary. So far, the books I've self-published, I went without an index because they're fairly short. And the important thing, avoid lawsuits. You want to make sure you don't use material that someone else, in somebody else's book without getting their permission. And of course, you want to have printed permission in writing in case any issues come up. And you don't want to use images that you just found on the internet somewhere that could be copyrighted. You want to either use images that you created yourself or photographs that you took yourself or things that you can tell are free to use and either out of copyright or that they've been promoted on a website that says it's royalty free or copyright free. So because you don't want somebody to come after you, unless you're a major publisher, probably anybody is just going to send you a letter from a lawyer and ask you to remove the objectionable material and not really take you to court. But if you had any substantial resources, they might try to go after that. So you are responsible. If you publish with a traditional publisher, the publisher takes on any potential liability there. But if you're self-publishing, it's up to you. So you want to be a little bit careful. And of course, you don't want to put anything in your book that would be defamatory to somebody because they could come after you for that too. And the next topic is going to be some publishing platforms. I think I won't bother to show the slide here because it's pretty short. But the big one right now is KDP, which stands for Kindle Direct Publishing. It's run by Amazon, and Amazon used to have a self-publishing platform that they called CreateSpace, and they decided to merge that with their Kindle Direct Publishing, which was originally only for doing ebooks for the Kindle reader. and they expanded it so that it includes publishing paperback books now. And you do it with your computer, and you would upload the files. One of the good things about using KDP is that within hours I've found of uploading your files, and it's been approved by the people that need to approve it, Amazon. Within hours, it's available for purchase on Amazon, so it's pretty quick. And of course, Amazon is where most people go to look for books that they're interested in. Primarily, Amazon just wants to make sure that you're not trying to say that they are the publisher of the book, because they don't want to get sued for any mistakes that you may have made. So there's usually a pretty quick review, and then, as I say, usually sometimes within hours the book goes live. Another one that people like to use is Lulu, along the same lines as Kindle Direct Publishing, but a little bit more tricky to use because their formatting requirements are a little bit more detailed than what the Kindle would do. And with any of these platforms, usually they'll have some options. If you want to purchase some consulting as far as how to format your book or other things, you can pay to do more and get more assistance if you feel like you want to have that. There's also, you can design your covers online. They usually have templates where you can design it. Maybe you can, put a photograph or some other image that's free to use on the cover of the book. And it's kind of fun to play around with when you design your cover. You can also design it separately or pay somebody to design it, and you can upload a cover as like a PDF file, so that you have a number of options there. Another possibility is a lot of independent bookstores have bought equipment that will manufacture books, and they'll work with you. And usually there's some fee involved, but the advantage is you'd have a local contact that you could work with. And any of these will do basic things like they'll help you get allow you to get a ISBN in standard book number, which is how the books are identified when people want to purchase them, and so forth. Usually it's included as part of these packages. Once your book is submitted and is available, and also, by the way, there are other publishing platforms you could use. I only mentioned a few, but there's other ones. You can do web searches and find a number of different ones. Now I'm going to go to the next slide, talk about marketing, and this is one of the things I've really enjoyed doing. As I mentioned before, it's going to be up to you to market your book if you want to help to publicize it. Whoops, oh, that's wrong, sorry. Whoops, I must have misnumbered. Well, let me just launch into it rather than take up time. I probably can make these slides available through the library too at the end, or at some point if that would work out. When you're marketing, you want to start with your title and your keywords and your cover. The title of the book is kind of important because a lot of times people are going to locate your book through online searches and so forth. So you want to have it be pretty descriptive. Now, I first got self-publishing because I had done a lot of research on Solomon Northup that lived near here and where I live here in Saratoga County. And he was the person that the film 12 Years a Slave was about. And I'd done a few talks about him and so forth in his life. He was kidnapped and sold as a slave and then eventually was rescued. And they made a movie about him called 12 Years a Slave. And I heard that they were going to be making a movie and I thought, you know, I always intended to write up something about Solomon Northup and I never have gotten to it yet. But if I'm going to do it, now is the time because if there's a movie coming out, this is a good opportunity. So I decided that the quickest way to get the book out would be to self-publish it. And so I just sat home for a few months. This is back in 2011, and you know, wrote up my manuscript and had my wife help to proofread it and so forth, and submitted it and got it published. And then it turns out the movie didn't come out till the following year, 2013. So I had time to shop around for publishers because I had a friend of mine who had also done some other research on Solomon Northup at different aspects of his life. And we collaborated and we were able to get a book contract with a company called Prager. And the title we decided on was Solomon Northup, The Complete Story of the Author of 12 Years a Slave. Now, that's a little bit long, but we wanted to make sure we got in there the words 12 Years a Slave so that people would tie it in with the movie. So when it be strategic about what title you pick, you might think of a title that sounds kind of cute, but the reader or potential purchaser might not know what the book is really about. So the title itself is kind of a marketing feature. When you submit your book, you're going to be putting in keywords and so forth that will help people to locate the book from doing web searches. So you want to, again, use strategic keywords, and people that are interested in a certain topic are going to maybe look for those keywords and find your book that way. And then the cover is kind of important too. You want it to look kind of attractive and alluring to potential purchasers. Again, you can design the covers on your own. You could also get somebody else to do it and upload it as a PDF when you publish your book. But that's really the first step. Now, once your book is done and out there, you want to let all your friends and relatives know that you have a book out there because they may help to spread the word. And they, you know, with luck, they may want to buy copies for themselves as well. You want to prepare a professional looking press release, and you can look up examples of press releases in various websites to know how to follow it. And you could submit those to your local media, your newspapers, and even TV and radio stations, because they might be interested that a local person has put a book out on a certain topic. And if it's professional looking, you may get some bites, and they'll want to do some kind of a story about you and your book. There are websites that have different ways of supporting authors that you want to look at. One of the most important ones is Amazon, because Amazon has author pages, and if you sign up with Amazon's what they call Author Central, you can put information in there about your book, and you can even, if there are reviews that somebody did, you can post excerpts from reviews on your own. and you could put information in there about you and even links to a blog that you might have and so forth. So the Author Central or Amazon Author Central is a really good tool. There's some other ones, the one called Author's Den, another one called Library Thing, and Goodreads. They have different ways that authors can do things to promote their book. You might want to set up a website. There'd be a little bit of cost involved there, but even if you don't do a website, you could at least have a Facebook page about you as an author, or even a Facebook page just on your book. You can give talks. A lot of libraries, if you're willing to speak for free, are usually anxious to take you up on it if it's an interesting topic related to your book. Sometimes you could even get a fee. There may be groups like historical societies, if it's a book about some history topic, they want to have you speak. There's groups like, I've done a couple things for Rotary Club chapters. A lot of these groups will, let you come, and if you have copies of your book, they'll let you sell them at the end of your presentation. So it's, I've done pretty well with some of those types of things as far as selling some books. There may be book fairs. Usually there's some kind of a fee to exhibit at a book fair, but occasionally there's some that don't cost. And, it's up to you how much money you want to spend and if you think it's going to work out or not. But that's a good way to have, contact with people that are interested in your book, and you get a chance to talk it up a little bit if they stop at your booth and sometimes get a sale there. You may want to have business cards and flyers made up if you're going to go to something like a book fair, or even if you're doing presentations, because people may not feel that they want to purchase the book right then and there, but if they have a copy of your business card or flyer, then maybe later on they'll decide to go, look up the book and buy it at that point. So it's good to have things to hand out to people. I just have like these business card templates you can buy, and I just print them on my computer. So that way, if I want to make changes to it from time to time, I'm not stuck with, having purchased business cards. You may be able to arrange book signings. I've had some luck with independent bookstores. The big chain stores aren't as anxious to work with self-published authors, in my experience, but you never know. You can always sound them out. But the independent booksellers, I've done some things with, and sometimes they let you sell the books yourselves, and other times they don't want the books to be sold through the store. But whichever way, it's a way to get some publicity about yourself, because they'll usually list it as an event on their website or maybe in the local newspaper. And even if people don't attend, they may see it and are aware that you have a book out there. Possibly you could appear on a podcast. Sometimes the podcast hosts are looking for guests, and if it's related to a topic, if the topic of your book is relevant to a particular podcast, they may let you do that. I've done a few of those things, and usually you can just do it over the phone. You don't have to go show up any place, but they'll talk to you for a little bit about your book, and doesn't cost you anything, so it's an easy way to do some marketing. It's kind of interesting to do. You could donate copies of your book to like your local library, and because people may see the book in the library and take it out and read it, or at least they're aware of it. if they like the book, maybe they'll end up buying their own copy, or maybe they'll recommend the book to other people so that you can get some sales that way. Most libraries are willing to accept you know, free books you want to donate. And when the last thing, maybe something people don't think of, but if you're an alumnus of a college, you know, usually the alumni newsletter or alumni magazine will have a class notes section, so you can always submit the news to the editor of the class notes for your class, and that way anybody that knows you from college will see it. They see it and know that oh, Joe has a book out that's interesting, and they may be interested in buying it. So that's, again, that doesn't cost anything. It's quick and easy to do, and I've done that with a couple of the universities that I had attended. So don't be afraid to email. You know, I've never had anybody email me back and say, you know, don't ever email again. If they're not interested, they just don't respond. But a lot of times you do hear back from people one way or another. So don't be afraid to use email and people that you think may be interested. Even Facebook pages and groups, if it's related to a topic, related to the topic of my book, I'll post things there sometimes. And I feel that if the administrator of the group doesn't like it, they can just always delete it. It doesn't really affect me. But sometimes, you know, you get some positive feedback that way, and maybe somebody that eventually would want to buy your book. Of course, social media, you'll want to, if you're on Facebook and Twitter, you can post notices a bit about the book that you have out, and people may be interested in that. If you find that there's blogs related to the topic of your book, a lot of times the blog editors are anxious to have somebody submit an article, and they'll usually have a little couple sentences somewhere there that says, you know, like something like David Fiske is a retired librarian and he is the author of so-and-so. So you get a little publicity that way. So there's a lot of different things you can do. It just takes a little bit of creativity. Somebody think had a question about copyright, which is, as long as you put anytime that you publish something, it's technically copyrighted, but usually you put on the back of the title page a statement about saying it's copyrighted and the year and so forth. The best thing is to spell out the word copyright, C-O-P-Y-R-I-G-H-T, and you can even put all rights reserved is the standard language that they use. That'll make it obvious to anybody that the book is copyrighted. And lastly is some things you know about as far as business matters. If you purchase books from your publishing platform that you plan to sell, you want to keep track of the inventory because that's going to affect the way you report things as far as income. Technically, authors, even if they were published by a traditional book publisher, the IRS considers them to be self-employed. So that means you have to report your income on a Schedule C because you're considered to be running a business, and you'll need to report on your inventory that you had like at the beginning of the year, and how many books you sold and what inventory you had left. So you need to keep track of that. In New York State also, it'd be good if you're going to do much selling at events and so forth to apply to the New York State Taxation and Finance Department to get a certificate to be able to collect sales tax. And then you're going to have to report on your sales and then make payments. You can do all this online too. You can apply for it online and everything. I'm not sure that everybody that sells their books, that book signing things, does that, but I can't tell you not to do it really. I decided to do it because the first event that I did was at my former employer at the New York State Library. And since it was a New York State agency, I thought I should make sure I followed the letter of the law and got a sales tax certificate and collected sales tax. And I do have to report it on a quarterly basis. And some quarters I really didn't sell any books on my own. But books that you get sold through something like Amazon or other online sources take care of all of that, so you don't have to worry about it there. It's the only ones you sell personally. And you know, I think probably a lot of people don't do that, but I don't really feel I should tell you not to. It's something you should that you should be aware of. One of the advantages of doing that is that when you order books that you want to resell, you don't have to pay sales tax when you order the books for yourself if you're planning to sell them. So like even the books that I published with a traditional publisher, when I order books that I want to sell at maybe a book signing or some event that I have coming up, I had given them a copy of my sales tax certificate so that they don't, I don't have to pay the sales tax when I order the books. And that amounts to something. As the author, I can purchase the books from the publisher at a discount, but still the sales tax would amount to something. So it saved me something when I order books. And then because when I sell them at an event or something, I'm charging the sales tax there, so the state is getting their money at that point instead of at the earlier stage. So there is one advantage to it. And I think I missed a couple of questions as I was talking, but I think someone had a question about the copyright symbols, and my understanding is that you want to actually spell out the word copyright, because especially with books like, say, an ebook, the copyright symbol could be different in different fonts if people have somehow the ability to change a font or something. The best thing is actually spell out the word copyright and also put all rights reserved. It's the standard language that people use. Now, ebooks are somewhat similar because you don't have as many formatting problems as you might have if you're doing a printed book, because people just read it in one stream. I did notice that when I've done ebooks that generally you have to lower the resolution on your images, because they don't want when I had ones that were very high resolution images, it was really rejected, like by Kindle Direct Publishing, and I had to go and lower the resolution of the images. So that's one extra step there. but doing ebooks is somewhat similar, somewhat easier, I should say. And usually people don't charge as much for ebooks, so you're going to make less royalty because the price that people would pay is less. But on the other hand, some people really do pretty well with selling ebooks, and can make some money that way. Now, somebody had is an article from this year that I can recommend to you as far as more information on self-publishing. And the title of it, which you can Google, is Self-Publishing versus Traditional Publishing 2020 Deep Dive. And it was on a website called selfpublishingschool.com, and that is self, and then there's a hyphen, publishingschool.com. So that's a good article that you can look at. And of course, there are a number of books out there for. Yeah, thanks for putting that link there. Something I found helpful too is, even if you don't use Lulu to publish your book, if you go to lulu.com /publishing-toolkit, they have a lot of information in there, tips on self-publishing, how to go about it, and some things that I actually found pretty helpful to look at, even though I never used Lulu myself. Well, I did use Lulu. I published some calendars via Lulu some years back. And I think that is where I'll stop for the moment. We've got some time for questions and so forth.
Let's see. We have a question. Would like to know the costs from copy editing to publishing. Like, is there a ballpark figure?
Yeah, usually it's not that much. Like, and there's not too much difference between the different publishing platforms. But as an example, I have several of my books are pretty short that I self-published, and they're like less than 100 pages. And basically, the actual cost of for printing the like about less than $3. And I'll charge, like, maybe if I sold them myself, I would charge $8, and I priced them, from between $8 to $12 for a book that size. I did one book that had color images in it because I had photographs that I took that I wanted to use. So that one I charged more like $17 for. And the publishing platform will take out, when a book is sold, they'll take part of the price for themselves, and then the royalty will get paid to you. So like the book that I had that has color pictures, I usually sell it for like about $17, so, and I make $4 or $5 for each copy. So that's pretty good for a fairly short book. And as I say, books that I sell for like $8 or $12, where the cost to the printing cost was like $3 or so, I can buy those books for about that price with a little bit of shipping, and I sell them for some dollars more. So I do better than if it was with a traditional book publisher. Just to, and really the publishing platforms, you can publish any kind of book. So if you have poetry books and so forth, you can really do whatever you want. There's Kindle Direct Publishing via Amazon. Lulu also will do comic books and will do magazines and even hardcover books if you want. Of course, hardcover books are going to cost more to produce. There's some other ones. There's a site I haven't used, of course, called Blurb, and there's also BookBaby or some other ones. And really any type of book, because the content is up to you. You just have to make sure that you're not, violating anyone else's copyright either on images or material, and you're not publishing anything defamatory that you could get sued for, because you're responsible for. The platforms really are just making the book available.
We have a question. Generally, what amount of quantity would you need to order to pay $3 per book?
Really, yeah. It doesn't matter. You could order a handful, or you could order 20, and it's the same price. Primarily, I used CreateSpace for my paperback books, and that was run by Amazon. And a couple years ago, Amazon blended it in with their Kindle Direct Publishing. Kindle Direct Publishing previously had only been ebooks, but now you can do either ebooks or you can do softcover books. And they just want the price of what it costs them to produce the book, and maybe a little bit more to make a little bit of money from the sales, but it's not that much. So that's kind of neat, because if you just want to order 5 books, it really costs the same as if you order a larger number. For ebooks, I found the platform smashwords.com. Works pretty well. Originally, I had a book I did on Kindle Direct Publishing, and did okay, but you didn't really make that much royalty there. But I found this smashwords.com will let you, do your ebooks. And one neat thing is they'll do it in a number of different formats. So there's like an EPUB format, and there's you can publish it in Kindle format. It won't be available through the Kindle, page on Amazon, but people that have a Kindle can buy it, and it will be readable on their Kindle. And then with Smashwords, one thing that they do is they'll take your ebook and submit it to Apple. And Apple has to review it. Usually takes a few weeks, but if they accept it, it'll be in the Apple bookstore. So that anybody that's looking for books that they can read online with their Apple devices, their iBooks, their iPods, and so forth, iPads, I guess I should say, then they can purchase it right through there. So that's kind of neat, because it's another extra way to get your books noted. And there's I think there's about 10 or so different formats that Smashwords will make your book available in, so that whatever kind of reader and so forth people have. And if you do use Kindle Direct Publishing for an ebook, people don't necessarily have to have a Kindle, because there's a Kindle reader that people can install for their PC and so forth. So people don't necessarily have to have a Kindle to be able to read Kindle books if you do go with publish your book as your ebook as a Kindle ebook. I saw a couple questions fly by, and I was talking, so I kind of missed. Actually, somebody mentions audiobooks. That's interesting. I didn't delve into that yet. Not sure exactly how it works. I think it's not too complicated to do, but that's something that a lot of people like to do now. And probably I should investigate that myself at some point, but I don't have too much to say about it other than it's kind of a neat thing, and it's probably something that I should investigate, and you may want to investigate as well.
We have a question pertaining to children's literature. Any tips on how to go about securing an illustrator? And is there a publisher that is best for this genre? Or would any of the previous mentioned work?
Yeah, again, I think the publishing platforms really are not necessarily geared toward specific types of books, because it's really up to you, you know, what type of book you want to do and what you want to have in it. So whether it's poetry or a children's book. Now there's different ways that you can find illustrators. You can do web searches and so forth. There are people that are, you know, some of them may be like students that are studying art. They're willing to, you know, do some illustrations for a book first, you know, a smaller fee, or maybe you have a friend who has some artistic capabilities that can help you design the artwork.
We have one. How long does it take to obtain a copyright?
Well, technically, copyright is kind of interesting because as soon as you publish a book, it's considered to be copyrighted. A lot of people don't realize that. But usually I think what they're talking about is if you want to have it registered with the Copyright Office, which is run by the Library of Congress, usually you would do that, but a traditional publisher would do that for you. If you're self-publishing, you probably don't really need to bother to officially have it registered with the Copyright Office. But usually I think it would take a few weeks when my publisher, the traditional publisher that did 2 of my books, had to submit to the Library of Congress, and it did take a little while, but they can do it. They have the ability to do it on an expedited basis. But probably for self-publisher, I would not do that. I would just put the copyright notice on the book. One thing I did do when I first published my first book on Solomon Northup, I found that you could contact the Library of Congress and see if they would take a donation of your book. And if they decided they wanted to do it, they would catalog it and give it an LCCN number. Now, Stephen probably knows, I'm a librarian and he's a librarian. LCCN is the Library of Congress card number. And that gets it into the Library of Congress catalog, and also other places where other libraries, other catalogs like worldcat.org is a catalog of holdings of numerous libraries all over the world. And it can show up there, and maybe libraries that otherwise wouldn't know about your book could see it. And in my case, they don't want everybody to just send their books down. You have to contact them. And I said, here's what my book is about, and would you be willing to accept it and add it to your collection? And they said, yes, they would. So I sent them a copy, and they gave it a LCCN number. And it probably wasn't a big thing. Most people now look to Amazon as a place to look for books that they be interested in buying. But every little bit helps. So I didn't formally register any of my books, any of my self-published books, but I always put copyright notices on them, and that really is enough to, you know, basically have basic protection for yourself.
some of the
And
publishers, I'll say some of them like iUniverse, Author House, and uh, there's Lulu. I've seen those advertised at times in Publishers Weekly. They will put in a section
yeah,
of self-published, so it's very, very possible to get your book into Publishers Weekly submitted, because they
right.
have a request email where you can send your work to be previewed, and
Uh-huh.
if they pick it up, they'll do a review on it, which is
Yep.
really fun.
Yeah. Something else that's good to know is with the publishing platforms like Kindle Direct Publishing and so forth, there are distribution options that are important to know about. One, they call them different things, but one basically is through Ingram, and the other one is through a company called Baker and Taylor. And Ingram distributes books for bookstores and so forth. So a bookstore will see in the Ingram catalog a title that they may want to carry in their bookstore, and they can order it through there at a discounted rate. And for libraries, they also can order their books at a discounted rate through Baker and Taylor. And those are two distribution options that ordinarily don't cost you anything. You can choose if you want to have your book distributed just via Amazon, or I'm trying to keep an eye out for questions while I'm going here, so excuse me for interrupting myself. But and it's kind of interesting because if you choose the Ingram option, and actually it may not be identified as that on the publishing platform. I forget the phrase now. They have a different phrase that they use, but it really is Ingram's. And you'll find that online book publishers will suddenly see that your book and put it on sites like there's a site called Bookfinder for You. And if I remember right, the for you is the numeral 4 and then the letter U. Bookfinderforyou.com. And all of a sudden you'll see that all these online vendors, spotted your book because it was on Ingram's, and they're making it available. And, people may order it through there because things like Books A Million, and to be honest, I haven't looked for a while. I think, as far as I know, Books A Million is still in business, but I know a lot of bookstores are having trouble. But so those distribution options are worth it. You get a little bit less royalty for books that are sold through those, but it could be worth it to use those distribution options. And you'd be surprised, you'll when you on Amazon, the books will be available through the European version of Amazon, and even the Japanese version of Amazon and so forth. And I'm surprised that actually I have some of my books get sold through in Germany and so forth through the German Amazon option. So you never know. And I would say if you have choices for distribution, use as many as possible, because you never know who's going to be interested in buying your book anywhere around the world. I think someone had a quick question about if you already have books with the copyright symbol. Again, once a book is published under the American law, it's considered to be copyrighted just by being published. it's always good to make it as obvious as possible that it's under copyright. So that's why having the word copyright or the copyright symbol, if you want to do that, in all rights reserved terminology, just make sure that people don't think it's, you know, something that's just up for grabs that anybody can use. And I don't know, I'm kind of counting on Stephen if there were
We have
that question.
we have another question from if somebody's asking if if using a book shepherd is a route to go. I think that would be costly. That they're kind of doing all of the copy, doing all the legwork mostly.
Yeah, it could be worth it. Now, the publishing platforms, usually, if you want, you can sign up to get extra assistance from them for, like, maybe if you want some editorial help, or if you want them to help you design a cover for an extra fee, you can do that. A friend of mine had published with Lulu, and he said that, you know, with it worked out okay, but he said that anytime he contacted him with some question, they were very assertive about trying to get him to purchase extra services through them. But there are people, if you do web searches too, there's people that will help you get your book done. But you also might know somebody that would be willing to do it that has, now see, I had background, I used to work years ago writing software manuals. So I had some background in designing publications and so forth. I felt comfortable, you know, doing all that on my own. But if you don't feel comfortable, you could maybe be able to hire somebody without spending too much. There are also companies that will help you market your book, and my experience is that they tend to be kind of pricey, so I didn't really go with any of those.
We have a question. This is interesting. Can you make up a name to use as a publisher if you're self-publishing?
Yeah, actually, yeah, you can. I know that with CreateSpace you could do that. I'm assuming that it carried over when Amazon merged CreateSpace with Kindle Direct Publishing. But you could, for a small fee, you could set up your own imprint, is what that would be called, or have your own publishing company. And you could have your ISBNs. Now, people probably don't realize that part of the ISBN number, the International Standard Book Number, identifies the publisher of the book. So if you were Random House, all the books that Random House publishes are going to have a certain code number in there that identifies that it came from Random House. When you're self-publishing, usually you don't really care, so you just get an ISBN number assigned by the publishing platform, which usually they would do for free. You can also, for I think it's $25, you can purchase an ISBN from Bowker, the company that maintains that whole system, and have your own number. If you went to your local printer and just printed up the books, you could have an ISBN that you bought from Bowker. But usually the publishing platforms will do that, will let you to get a number yourself. But it's kind of a random number. But somebody that I worked with, he likes to have his own imprint. He's published a number of books that he self-published. And he went the extra route to get his imprint, and the books that he does all would be identified through the ISBN as having been published by his publishing imprint. So you can do that, and I'm pretty sure probably Amazon carried that feature over to their Kindle Direct Publishing when they merged CreateSpace with that. Yeah, Bowker. Bowker publishes things like books in print and a lot of things, Publishing Weekly and things. They've been around for like over 100 years. I think probably close to 150 years. And they do a lot of things related to book publishing, including maintain the ISBNs. But so yeah, if you want to have your own imprint, you can do that. Now, somebody had something there about hardcover books, and Kindle Direct Publishing strictly is ebooks and paperback books. But Lulu will do hardcover books, and I'm not sure about some of the other ones, but you'd have to see what they do. Of course, with hardcover books, it's going to be the price of the book is going to be more, which could impact sales. But if it's like a book where you have a lot of artwork that you want to display, and basically like what they call a coffee table book that looks nice, you might want to go for a hardcover book. Some of the larger libraries, like research libraries and university libraries, will spring for a hardcover book because they expect it's going to be in their collection for decades and it will stand up better. But a lot of your small, your public libraries, your local libraries may want to go paperback just because they have a more limited budget and aren't worried about whether it's hardcover or not. But Lulu, I know that's hardcover, and I'm sure some of the other platforms that you could find.
I think Ex Libris.
And probably also, that I'm 100% sure about. I've heard of them. I think I investigated them some time back, but
we have,
right.
Will Amazon pay the royalties? What's the average return for a book priced at $10?
Okay, it depends on, I'll explain how Amazon does it with Kindle Direct Publishing. You set up your book and you submit it, and they say your book is going to amount to 140 pages. And they have a basic cost for doing the book, and then a per page cost for printing the book, and maybe a couple other things in there. And they say, as I mentioned before, like several books I self-published, the cost amounts to like, say, $2.84. So that's what Amazon is going to take. And if I say I want the book to cost $5, basically I would get the difference between $5 that people would pay to buy the book and the per book cost that Amazon is going to charge me. Remember, these books are only printed when somebody actually orders it, so there's no inventory. So it's there's no unless Amazon decides to purchase the book and make it available through the Amazon.com, which occasionally they do, but mostly they're print on demand. And I would get the difference between the $2.84 and the $5, so I would get a royalty of $1.16. Now, if I decided I would rather charge $9 and get more royalty for myself, then I can price it at $9. So it's really up to you. Some of my books I started at a certain price, and then after I had sold a certain number of copies, I said, well, now that I made some money off of this, I'm going to lower the price by like $1. And you can go on and just change that on your own. And within a few hours, the price on Amazon would show up as being, you know, the new price. So you can, if you want, you can make it a little bit more affordable, maybe sell some more books and get a slightly less, slightly reduced royalty for yourself. The good thing about the publishing platforms is they usually pay like on a monthly basis, so you don't have to wait till like the end of the year. And they put it, you can, usually they want you to set up your bank account, so they'll put it right in your bank account, or some of them use PayPal. Smashwords.com for publishing ebooks will put it in your PayPal account within a few weeks of a sale being made. So it's kind of good because you get the money, you know, a lot sooner than waiting for a traditional publisher to. Well, thanks for that comment there from Andra. That's good because this is the first time I've ever done this presentation. I'm always a little bit worried about if I fine-tune things enough, but I'm glad that people are getting something out of it. And it looks like we're a little bit over on time, which is no problem with me, but if there's a couple more questions, I'll be happy to deal with those. It's Schedule C, yeah, you wanna, if you're self-publishing, they're gonna want to know they're gonna have to report the sales to what they paid you to the IRS. So you have to do a Schedule C. If you don't really, it's not really too bad to do. There is going to be some tax because you're going to have to pay a little bit of self-employment tax as part of that. But it's really not too onerous. The Schedule C form for sole proprietor is fairly straightforward. But if you got to the point where you're really selling a lot of books, it might be, I know a lot of authors will have, you know, an accountant that they use. I haven't gotten to that point yet, but it would be good.
We have one question. How do you actually know the number of books sold? Yeah,
okay, that's with one good reason to sign up with the Amazon, what they call Author Central, and Stephen can double check this one, but I believe the URL is just authorcentral.amazon.com or something like that. And you can get reports of how many of your books sold. And also if you sign on to kdp.amazon.com, which you'll do if you're using Amazon, you can get reports from there that will give you specifics on how many books sold and through what distribution platform and so forth. So you can get information on that. And the one on Author Central is really nice because it'll show you within a day or two that you sold some books, and what books it was, and you end up having more than one. So that's Author Central is really a good thing to use. Whether you publish the books through Amazon or not, if they're available through Amazon, you can get reports on what books sold.
Well, I thank you for your time and this absolutely wonderful wealth of information. And I thank everybody
great, thank you.
for zooming in and having such great questions.